This morning's message is related to it. Want to sort of give maybe a bigger picture on things. Our opening verse for this morning is going to come from Psalm 48. Now, I was going to put the whole psalm in there, but I just broke up a couple of different pieces. It's only like 12, 13 verses. You guys can read it for yourself. It's a wonderful, wonderful psalm. But verses 1 and 2 and then verses 12 through 14 say the following. Great is Yahuwah, and greatly to be praised in the city of our Elohim, his set-apart mountain. Beautiful on high, the joy of all the earth is Mount Zion on the sides of the north, the city of the great king or sovereign. Verse 12, walk about Zion and go all around her. Count her towers. Set your heart upon her rampart. Go through her citadels so that you report it to the coming generation. For this Elohim is our Elohim. Forever and ever, he himself leads us even to death. For a few moments this morning, the title and the topic of the message is called On the Side of the North. On the Side of the North. You guys, I know the prayer here with us. If you know it at home, please pray with us. Father, give us eyes to see, ears to hear, and a heart that is willing to obey. In the Master's name, amen. Amen. Okay. I hope that most of you guys, if not all of you, have had the opportunity to check out last Wednesday's Bible study, or this Wednesday's Bible study. It's definitely going to relate to some of the stuff that we're going to talk about here. If not, certainly you can go back and listen to it. You won't be lost. I'll do a little bit of covering a little bit of that ground. But with regards to everything that's going on all around us, and I mean, there's a lot going on all around us. I really do hope, I hope it just rains and it pours all day long in every city. Thunder, lightning, I mean torrential. If you're going to pray for something, pray for that, just to stop this craziness. Our police, our military, this is just not what we should be doing. But unfortunately, there are entities out there, there are nations out there that unfortunately are sponsoring a lot of this. We are living in a lawless world. We just are. That's who we are. That's the culture that we live in. And it's not just us. These same things are going on in Europe. They're going on all over. They're going on in England. They're going on in France. They're going on in Poland. Protests and riots and strife. There's strife all over Europe between the native European population and the imported Islamic population. There are conflicts everywhere, all over the Middle East. Of course, we know that. We've seen the videos, I'm sure, online with Israel's recent attack and the attack just on Israel just yesterday. And it's not just there, it's all over Africa. I don't know why, everybody forgets about Africa. Africa is in turmoil. It's been in turmoil for a long, long time, but it is in turmoil. They're trying to shake off the hands of all the companies that have been looting them and stealing from them and making billions off of their diamonds and uranium and earth minerals. And some countries are trying to take it back, and that's not an easy thing to do against a multi-billion-dollar company. The world is going crazy. People are being killed all over Africa, be it Boko Haram or other groups, and we don't even hear about it. It's not even on the news anymore. 70 people went to go worship and got mowed down in their worship service. It doesn't even make the news anymore. It's like nobody even cares. If it's not about Trump, nobody cares. And it's sad. It really, really is sad. But Messiah is coming. Messiah is coming. And I know that, especially from, I guess, the religious background we've all sort of traveled through to get where we are, everybody looks forward to that that day. Say, I want to be there. Who does not want to actually see with your own eyes the coming of the Messiah? Wouldn't that be wonderful if you could actually see it and in that moment you are changed in the twinkling of an eye? Wonderful. I mean, just that thought is pretty amazing until you begin to realize what it would take for you to survive to that point. Things are going to get bad before Mashiach comes, and there's a reason for it. And that's sort of the message today. I want you to understand the reason behind it. We started it on Wednesday. We've been talking about the conflict. We talked about the conflict between Messiah and Satan. We didn't really get a chance to finish it. We'll finish it this Wednesday. So this message is really, I guess, just an addendum to that. But we'll finish up the message this upcoming Wednesday, and we talk about the battle in Luke 4 and Matthew 4 between Satan and between the Master and what all of that is about. But I do want to talk about the bigger picture. Because everything, I know this is kind of hard to wrap our minds around, but everything that is going on, I mean, from whatever's going on in whatever state or city there is in America, what's going on in Europe, what's going on in Africa, what's going on in Russia, everything is a product, is an earthly representation of a conflict and a battle that did not start in our realm, but it is being played out in our realm. We are affected by it. Maybe a better thing to say is we have been infected by it. And the battleground is here. There's a concept I want everybody to sort of wrap their mind around. I know this is, again, a little tough sometimes to wrap our minds around, but as creation is made, there is another Jerusalem. There is another place where Father's throne is and the Son's throne is. There is that other place. And when creation as you and I understand it occurs, the planet that we live on today, we are a mirror image. We are maybe not mirror, we are a shadow of that existence. Whatever is played out down here has a greater representation there. And there is a conflict that started there that has reached us, has reached the shadow. And that's what I kind of want to talk about today. The term on the sides of the north. Believe it or not, everything that's going on this planet today, and has been going on for a long time, ultimately, it is about the battle for Jerusalem. Everything is about the battle for Jerusalem. Even if stuff that's going on seems like it's got nothing to do with Jerusalem, everything is about the battle for Jerusalem in some way or another. In Psalm 48, verse 1, great is Yah and greatly to be praised in the city of our Elohim, his set apart mountain. Beautiful on high, the joy of all the earth is Mount Zion. And Mount Zion, while it has a whole bunch of different names, Mount Zion is one, Jerusalem is another, and the sides of the north is another term that refers to Jerusalem. Because it tells us it is the city of the great God. It's talking about Jerusalem, where the temple was. That is the place of the sides of the north. And yet, the picture that we're looking at there, of course, just an artist rendering, isn't the Jerusalem in the Middle East, obviously. It's an artist rendering of the Jerusalem to come at the end of the book of Revelation. Vital biblical principle that I know that you guys know, but it is worth saying over and over and over and over again, that Yah tells us the future from the past. If we can understand the beginning, we will understand the ending. In like manner, if we reject the beginning, if we ignore the beginning, if we say, well, it's just stories, it's just history, and it doesn't really apply to us, without the beginning, there is no way to understand the ending. And, beloved, we're living at some space, some whatever distance it is to the coming of Messiah. We're living much closer to the ending than the beginning. And at this point in the timeline, you and I should be able to look back on the entire story and get the whole picture. We should understand more about what this book is about today than even in the days of King David or even in the days of wandering through the wilderness. That was the beginning. They were living it. Here we are still living it, but we are living it based on the patterns that came before us. And why is that? Because Isaiah chapter 46 says the following. Verse 5 and then verses 9 and 10, I think. It says, to whom do you liken me? This is Yah speaking through the prophet. And he's asking, what can you compare me to? To whom do you liken me and compare me and make me similar, that we should be alike? Is there anyone that we can compare Yah to? Let me back up here for a second. Because when we say Yah, a lot of times we're thinking Father. And there's plenty of times where it absolutely does mean Father. We're talking about the Father on the throne, in charge of all things. But there's a lot of times you're going to see today, and hopefully on Wednesday, there's a lot of times when we're speaking about Elohim, but we're speaking about the Son before he is what you and I call him today, Yahushua, Yahusha, Yeshua, whatever term, Yehoshua, whatever term you want to use, that prior to that, he is the Yah on the throne. He is the one sitting on the sides of the north. He is the one in the temple. It's his presence. And I know that's kind of difficult sometimes for us to wrap our mind around because we're talking about the concept of the idea of Father, Son, and Spirit, right? Everybody gets kind of wonky when we do that. Hopefully this is just very, very simple. I understand things simply. That's how I work. Hopefully it works for you. Here's a real simple way of understanding the whole thing. Father, and we've all been in business, or we've worked somewhere, we watch TV shows with businesses, and Father is the CEO. He is the Chief Executive Officer. Now, if you're in a company, you know who's in charge. Do you really ever see the CEO? Probably not. Once in a while, he may pop up, but you know ultimately the CEO is in charge. The one that you do see is not the CEO, you see the COO, the Chief Operations Person, Chief Operations Officer. That's the person who is the representation and fulfills the will and gets the job done that the CEO said to do. So while you might not see the CEO, his thing is getting done through the COO. To carry the analogy out a little bit further, that would make the Spirit of Yah the OM, the operations manager. He's the, boots on the ground. He's doing the dirty work. He's getting it done. But it's still the CEO's perspective. It's what he wants done. And then that would make you and I, in this great analogy, employees. It'd make us employees. We're here living it. We're doing it day to day. Now, maybe that's not exact, but hopefully this helps you, because when we talk about the battle between what Satan is trying to do and what God is trying to do, Satan is not dumb enough to oppose Father. He is dumb enough to oppose the Son, though. And that's the conflict that has been going on for a long, long time. I guess in Hebrew or in Yiddish, you would say he's got chutzpah. He's got lots of moxie. Here is, so we know who Yah is because he tells us the beginning from the end. So what's the beginning story? The battle for Jerusalem is the beginning story. This is the book of Ezekiel, chapter 26 and verse 22. A little bit of review from Wednesday. This is the story, or the prophet is speaking about the king of Tyre. The reason he's speaking about the king of Tyre is because everything on earth is a shadow of something bigger. There's a principality, a power, a spirit, a demonic entity or spiritual entity behind it. So often, or very often in the scripture, when you read about the king of Tyre, yeah, he's talking about the king of that day, but he's also talking about the spiritual power behind that king. Similar with the king of Babylon, talks about the king of Babylon. Well, there's a king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, and then there's the power and the spirit behind the king of Babylon. Of course, that's the enemy. So here in verse 22 of chapter 26, it just gives us a little window because there's a judgment that's like 4 chapters long in Ezekiel of Tyre, of the king of Tyre, of all the things the king of Tyre has done. And it starts off with this. This is what the king of Tyre has done. Son of man, speaking to Ezekiel, because Tyre, to soar, it's really Tyre we would say, because Tyre has spoken against Jerusalem. Aha! She, the gateway of the peoples, has been broken. She has been turned over to me. Let me be filled. She has been ruined. So it's talking about the fall of Jerusalem. And it's telling us, in a very literal sense, the king of Tyre was happy with that. He was fine with the fall of Jerusalem. He wanted Jerusalem. He wanted Jerusalem to fall. So we're using an earthly king and the thing that the earthly king is doing. And as Father continues to speak to Ezekiel, he goes from talking about that guy to someone else whose eye is on Jerusalem. Someone else who wants what the king of Tyre wants. And that shows up in Ezekiel chapter 28. Speaking of the king of Tyre, but you realize, and read just 1 or 2 verses and you realize he's not talking about the king of Tyre down here anymore. He's talking about something much, much bigger. And it says, and we're just picking it up in the middle. You guys can listen to Wednesday Bible study for all the details. Verse 13, speaking to the king of Tyre, really to Satan himself. You were in Eden. The king of Tyre was not in Eden. But you were in Eden, the garden of Elohim. You were the anointed cherub that covered. That word covered is in your Hebrews, your Strong's Concordance, it's H5526. And it means the one who protects. It means the shield. It means the fence. Think about this. If the definitions are accurate here, he's talking about the anointed cherub, the one who falls, the one we call the deceiver, Hasatan, Satan, the dragon, the devil, what all the different names there are, that his at least his initial start is as one who was there for protection. He's the cherub that covers. And I placed you. You were in the set-apart mountain of Elohim. Well, we just finished reading. What's the set-apart mountain of Elohim? It is Zion. It is the place of the king. It is on the sides of the north. Yes, here on earth, but he's not talking about here on earth. He's talking about that place where that Jerusalem is, on that mountain. That's where this cherub was. And I placed you when you were on a set-apart mountain of Elohim, Mount Zion, or we would say Jerusalem. You walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire. You were perfect in your ways from the day you were created. So he's a created being. Until unrighteousness, that is sin and rebellion, was found in you. So the conflict, the entire conflict we are all in today starts here. Not in us, in him. It starts in him. This cherub who wanted something. Now the question is, what do you want? How did sin get into his heart? Isaiah explains a little bit more. Isaiah chapter 14 and verse 12, he's not talking about the king of Tyre anymore. Now he's calling him the king of Babylon. And there's a whole lot of reasons for it. I just can't get into it today. It's too long to explain. It has everything to do with Esau, believe it or not. Isaiah chapter 14 and verse 12. It says, how are you fallen from the heavens, O Hallel, the bright one, the morning star. We would say Lucifer. How you have fallen from the heavens, O Hallel, Satan, the king of Babylon, the king of Tyre, Esau, son of the morning. You have been cut down to the ground, you who laid low the nation. So this is giving us some background information, but it's also giving us information in the future, because he's looking the perspective of speaking to the serpent here, or speaking to the devil. He's talking to him at the end of the story. You were the one who laid all the nations low. So this is almost like, this is really his judgment is what we're sort of looking at here and getting some background information. You who laid low the nations, the nation of Babylon, the nation of Persia, the nation of Greece, the nation of Rome, and every other nation that has come since then. For you have said in your heart, here it is, here's the problem. You have said in your heart, let me go up to the heavens. Let me raise my throne above the stars of, and I put in the yellow PDP, it's yellow there, it's I think just in parentheses on your notes. We read that, it says, let me put my throne above the stars of God. We read that as saying, oh, he's trying to exalt himself above Father. No, he's not. He's trying to exalt himself above the Son. His challenge is to the throne of the Son. And so he goes on to say, for you have said in your heart, let me go up to heavens, let me raise my throne above the stars of El, and let me sit in the mount of appointment. Now that's a little bit confusing. Some of your versions might say, sit in the mount of the congregation. So here's Lucifer. So what does it mean to sit in the mount of the congregation? Well, he's talking about the throne that's in Jerusalem. That's the master's throne. That's the city of the great king, both here on earth and certainly there. And he's saying, let me sit in the mount of the appointment or mount of the congregation. In the Hebrew, your Strong's Concordance, it's 4150. You all know this word. It's moed. Or we would say moedim. Feast days. He's saying, I want to exalt my throne above Messiah's throne and let me have my feast days, my appointed times, my holidays. Let there be worship on the appointed times to me, which should then remind us, well, what are all the appointed times about? They all tell us the story of Messiah. This is what he is putting himself above, or wants to put himself above. The appointment. And where? It's in blue there. On the sides of the north, which we just defined in Psalm 48. The sides of the north is Zion. It's the holy mountain, represented here on earth as Jerusalem, Mount Zion, the mountain that it's on, but it's an earthly representation of a greater truth, a shadow of something. And what does he want? Let me go above the heights. The heights, we've all heard this before. It's 1116 on your notes. When you do the Bible study, I got all the definitions there. You can look them all up. The heights, we've heard this a dozen times. Every time there's a pagan worship, we always hear, and they set up the asherim on the high places. They made their temples on the high places. Jerusalem is built on the high place. It's on a mountain. The gods of the pagans, whatever multiple gods they had were multiple gods, but whatever God was on the high place, that was the God. Baal was on the high place. The other ones were a little bit lower. When you walked into Babylon, the gods for Babylon were on a high place, and then there were many other gods and temples everywhere else, but the God was on a high place. He's saying, I want to be on a high place. I want my own feast days. I want my throne. I deserve my throne before Messiah or above Messiah. Let me go above to the heights of the clouds. Let me be like the Most High. The Most High he's referring to is the Son, the Holy One of Israel. So what is this overall conflict, everything that's going to go on? So think about it. In this place where this is, where creation begins, he's a created being. I have a feeling, this is just my opinion, I'll work this out in just a couple of seconds. It is my opinion that Lucifer was the first of them to be made. And you'll understand why in just a second. Because he's making claim to something that only a firstborn can make claim to. And he's claiming it for himself, or he's trying to here He wants to be like the Most High. All right, so there's the problem. Their conflict starts there, and when it starts there, if that's the place of reality and we are the shadow, if you've got something in reality and the shadow is eventually going to get cast down to the earth, and we're going to feel the conflict that's there. Not just feel it, we're going to be in the middle of it. We're going to feel the conflict there down here with us. And this has been the history of humanity. This is where we are. So whatever's going on today, I know there's lots of different problems, lots of problems in our own lives, lots of conflict going on, sickness, disease, all sorts of things. Everything stems from that conflict. Everything stems from that conflict. So if your father, you've given the throne already to the son with good reason, it's the son's job as the COO. If there's a problem in the company, the CEO doesn't have to fix it. It's the job of the COO to fix it. And the CEO will be there to give guidance and say, this, you should do this, do that, do the other thing, but it's the COO's job to fix it. There's a problem. I know it's hard for us to wrap our minds around. There's a problem, and this problem is big. As I said, earth is a reflection. Our lives are a reflection of something else. Here is the book of Hebrews, chapter 8 and verse 4, just to sort of make the point. This is the writer of Hebrews, and he's actually quoting, I think it's Exodus 25 or something like that. It says, for if indeed he, meaning the Messiah, were here on earth. So this is talking about after the resurrection, the ascension. He is now where he is as Melchizedek, or the Melech Zedek. That is the righteous king. Melech in Hebrew means king. Zedek means righteous. We say in English Melchizedek, but it's actually two Hebrew words put together, Melech Zedek. So that's who he's talking about. He's a priest there. It says, for if indeed he were on earth, he's not, he's ascended, he would not be a priest. Why? On the shadow on earth, who are the priests? Levites. Is he a Levite? No, he's from the tribe of Judah. He's got family ties to the priesthood, no doubt, but he's of the tribe of Judah. The tribe of Judah does not serve in the priesthood. So he says, since there are priests who offer the gifts according to the Torah. He's talking about the Levitical priesthood. Now, there's a reason why they are the priests. We'll get into that in a second. But look at what he says that this earthly priesthood does. It serves as a copy and a shadow of the heavenly. So if there is an earthly priesthood that is a shadow and a copy, what is there up there, or wherever dimension that is? There is a priesthood. That is the reality. We serve or are affected by the shadow, the copy. Everybody with me? With me? Say yes, shake your head. All right. Who serve as a copy and a shadow of the heavenly. As Moses was warned when he was about to make the tent, meaning the tabernacle. So he's going to make the tabernacle, the tent that's eventually going to become the temple, right? But what is the tabernacle? What is the temple? As Moses was warned when he was about to make the tent, for he, that is Messiah in speaking to, we don't call him Messiah. Moses didn't call him Messiah. He called him El. But he said, see that you make all according to the pattern shown you on the mountain. So Moses goes up to the mountain, and what does he see? I think he sees the real thing. And he's told to make this thing down on the earth according to that pattern. So that would be the reality. What is on the earth would be an earthly representation, or to follow the analogy here, it would be a shadow or a type. Here's Colossians chapter 2 and verse 16. It says, let no one therefore judge you in eating or drinking. Now, this gets so misinterpreted because we reject the concept, the idea that most people do, that we're supposed to still obey his instructions. And a lot of people read this and they think what Saul is saying here is, let no one therefore judge you in eating or drinking, or with respect to a festival or a new moon or Sabbaths, which are a shadow of what is to come. But the body, the reality of it, is Messiah. So people read that and they think he's saying, well, you don't have to do any of that stuff because that's just the shadow. No, you live in the shadow. That's where we are. That's what we do. We reflect what's actually going on up there. But now we know, just like we know the tabernacle is a picture of that throne room up there, we know when we do the feast days and we go through the process and we decide what is food and what is not food, and we keep Shabbats, we are doing a shadow here of what we will do there. Does that make sense? He's not saying not to do it. He's talking to the Gentiles who are coming in, who rabbinical Judaism of this day, or really Pharisaical Judaism of this day, didn't want Gentiles doing this stuff. This is our stuff. It's our Sabbath. It's our feast days. You can't do that. That's not for you. You're goyim. Yeah, you can do the 7 laws of, the 7 different rules or laws, but you can't do feast. That's what they're being judged on, because these people are doing it. They're not just doing it, they're understanding not just the shadow, but they're understanding the reality as well. We learn by doing. We don't learn by intellectualizing. We learn by doing. That is Hebraic thinking. But the point I want to make is, what are all of those things? A shadow. They're a type. They're a pattern. A pattern, a shadow, a type of what? For an individual to be considered a king priest, which is what Melchizedek means. Melech, king, Zedek, righteousness. To be a king priest, there's a couple things that have to happen. Number one, it's number 6 on your notes. The list should be there. I think, the list did come out. A list of 4 specific things. In order to be considered a king, a ruler, a leader in one's family, you had to be the firstborn, the eldest, the faithful eldest. And if for some reason the eldest winds up not to be faithful, then the second eldest takes on that job. This is a place of great respect, great authority, because everything that is your father's, if this is your home, your family, everything that is your father's gets turned over to the son. He's the firstborn. We see this all over the place in the beginning story with Cain and Abel. Guess who would have been the first son is called a Melchizedek. He is a king priest of his home. It's the job of the firstborn to not just be the firstborn, the ruler. It's the job of the firstborn to be the priest. It's the firstborn's job to make sure the instruction of what Yah is goes out to your brothers and sisters. It's also your job to make sure whatever offerings and religious duties and ceremonies got to get done, it falls on the firstborn to do it. That firstborn will also be tested to make sure that they are faithful in their office. Faithful to the point that if someone in your family strays from the family, you are willing as the firstborn king, the firstborn priest, the faithful one, to, even if it's necessary, lay down your life to bring that family member back. This is the job of the firstborn. So we got the story of Cain and Abel, right? Who's the first? Well, the first Melchizedek would be Adam. He's the firstborn. There's actually 12 Melchizedeks all the way up to Jacob. Jacob's the 12th Melchizedek. The 12th firstborn who has all of these attributes. And then the next firstborn winds up to be the whole house of Israel. 12 is an important number. It's the number of government in the scripture. So you had to be firstborn. You served as priest, spiritual leader, but you were tested on your faithfulness, and you had to be willing to give one's life. Where does all of this come from? Here's Psalm chapter 2. It says, the kings of the earth take their stand, and the rulers take counsel together against Yah. The Yah that's being spoken about here, it's not the Son. He's talking about the Father. How do we know? Listen to the context. The rulers take counsel against Yah, Yod He Vav He, and against his Messiah. Now we've divided them, so it's clear. We are rejecting the nations who we now know, we read Isaiah, were spoiled by the evil one. The nations are rejecting Father, the CEO, but they're also rejecting the COO and his Messiah. And say, let us tear apart their bonds and throw away their ropes. We don't want to obey. We don't want the requirements. We don't want the standards. We don't want the morality. We don't want the ethics. If you don't believe me, just this afternoon, just watch your TV and see what's going on all over our cities. Yes, that is pretty much the way people are. We want to do what we want, when we want, how we want it, without any repercussions. Of course, that just leads to utter chaos. So we throw away their ropes. I'm skipping to verse 6. You can read all of Psalm 2. But verse 6, listen to what Father says about the Son. But I have set my King on Zion. Wait, if he's the king, he has to be what? Firstborn, to be ruler. He also has to be priest. He will be tested. And if necessary, if his brothers or sisters wander, what does the high priest do? He would even give his life to bring them back. He says, I have set my king on Zion, my set-apart mountain, which is where we just started off in Psalm 48. That is the sides of the north. Look at the next verse. I put it in red up there. I think it shows up like that on your notes. I didn't put a parenthesis around it, but look at what Father's saying. So he says, I put my king on the throne. Who put Messiah on the throne? Father did. Father gave the throne to the firstborn, as any father in an earthly sense on the shadow plane would do it. He's given his son the throne, and then look what he says. I inscribe for a law. He didn't just do this arbitrarily. He did this because the pattern to do this is going to be inscribed where? In the law. In the Torah. All the information on how this process works will be inscribed in the law. So he's not just saying, I set my son, the Messiah, up as king because I felt like it. He says, no, I wrote a law. I'm doing this out of law. And it then goes on to say, Yah has said to me, this is Father, the Father has said to me, you are my son. Today I have brought you forth. So can you see that in this particular instance, you can see where we're talking about Father and you can see where we're talking about the Son. But when you read Isaiah and he's saying, I want to exalt myself above the throne of God, it's not the Father's throne, it's this throne. It's the throne on the sides of the north. It's the throne of Jerusalem, both here and there, to which we now know was given to whom? To the Son. It was given to the Son. One more time. For you have said in your heart, let me go forth from the heavens. Let me raise my throne above the stars. That is of Messiah, the Son, the stars of El, Messiah. And let me sit on the mount of the appointment. I want my own feast days. And you know what's kind of crazy? Satan actually got his own feast days, didn't he? He got exactly what he wanted. False feast days that we think are spiritual, that lots and lots of billions and millions and millions of people do. And we exalt him, lots and lots of people do, on high places. did he get what he wanted? At least here he did, because he starts here to bring this rebellion there, or to make this one successful, to make that one successful. Do you really think Messiah is going to sit down for that? I mean, if you were challenged to the throne, you think he's just going to roll over and say, go ahead, you got it, you take it? Of course not. Of course not. Now, obviously, we know the end of the story, so no. Let me sit on the mount of the appointment and the sides of the north. Let me go above the heights of the clouds, and let me be like the Messiah, the Most High of Israel, the Holy One. Number 7 on your notes. So as I said to you, Adam is the firstborn, isn't he? First one. And he's put on a blue-green wet ball that is a shadow of what? What's there? And just like there is a firstborn, priest, king, faithful, willing to give his life, so he creates man in his image and makes him king or ruler here. He is the firstborn, the Melchizedek, the first of the first 12 Melchizedeks. Ever wonder why when you read the genealogies in Genesis, it's, so-and-so begat so-and-so, and you read them and you're like, oh, that's just like boring, who cares, all right, so somebody lived X amount, 100 years, and then they had so-and-so, and you're reading, you're like, God, why are we reading this stuff? Because everyone that's first mentioned is a Melchizedek. And they're trying to get us to pay attention to the lineage that has been passed down from generation to generation to generation. And the last one is Jacob. He's the 12th. You can't fake that. That's amazing. So Adam is a firstborn. He is made king of the world. Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. And Elohim said, let us make man in our own image, according to our own likeness, and let them rule. Who rules? King does. The ruler does. The firstborn does. Adam did. He's priest. Genesis 2:15. And Yah Elohim took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and to guard it. Now we read that, you say, oh, he's a glorified gardener. Yeah, so are the priests. They are there to guard it as well as we are all there to guard something. His instruction. He was priest. It was his job to, as life goes on, bring the instruction that Yah gave to him to everybody else. He was tested. Like any good firstborn would be, he was tested. Genesis chapter 2 and verse 16. And Yah Elohim commanded the man, saying, eat of every tree of the garden, but do not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. That's mixing, right? There's two things. That's Babylon. What's Babylon? Mixing. Don't eat of that tree. For in the day that you eat of it, you shall certainly die. What's the test? Obedience. Just don't do that. I mean, it's not 10 commandments. It's not a whole bunch. It's don't do that. But it's still a test of faithfulness because he is the firstborn Melchizedek. And if he's the firstborn Melchizedek, who is the king, who is the priest, who is to be tested, when something goes really wrong with one that he loves of his family, what must he be willing to do? Lay down his life to bring them back. Uh-oh. He didn't do that. He failed the test. So if he's put in charge of this blue ball, he's the king of it. Like Messiah is the king of universe, but the king of the sides of the north. Adam is king here. There's a place of authority. One authority sets another king up. That king sets up another authority. That king sets up another authority. He's the authority here. Genesis chapter 3, verse 6. Instead of the serpent, the story of the serpent, the Nachash, the fiery one, the red dragon, notice he doesn't go to the firstborn. He doesn't go to Adam with this proposal. He goes to who? Eve. He usurps the authority already established by law. I set my son on a throne, and it is inscribed in a law. And he tells the woman, no, God didn't mean what he said. You're not going to die. Obviously, she believes. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, it was pleasant for the eyes, and a tree desirable to make one wise, she took of the fruit of it and ate, and she also gave to her husband with her, and he ate. Now, we could look at this two ways. Maybe he's given himself for her to, that they're in the jam together. But if he was actually doing what a Melchizedek does, what should he have done at that moment? Laid down his life. But he didn't. He ate. He ate. He obeyed the serpent. Who is he supposed to obey? Yeah. The one you obey, the New Testament tells us, Messiah tells us, the one that you obey, you are a servant of. Forget the word servant, you are a slave of. Whether you serve, Saul says this in Romans 6, whether you serve Yah unto righteousness or you serve unrighteousness, you're a slave to sin and death. Messiah says the same thing as he's talking with the Pharisees and he's talking with the religious leaders. And he tells them, they say, well, we're Abraham's children. He says, no, you're not. Now, technically, aren't they Abraham's children? If they spit in the cup and was sent it to 23andMe, it would come back. Yeah, your progeny somewhere goes to Abraham. But Messiah says, you're not Abraham's children because you don't obey what Abraham said to obey. Whose children were they? Serpents. Because he was a liar and you're a liar. And he was a murderer and you're a murderer. And he was a thief and you're a thief. The one you obey is actually your master, your slave. So at the moment Adam and the woman do this, the man who was given the throne here, what did he do with the throne or the authority that comes with being the firstborn here? He sold it to another. Satan got a foothold here. This is the conflict that started there, but it's being played out right here, or at least here in the pages of the garden. They obeyed the serpent. Satan usurped the earth. Number 8 on your notes. Second Corinthians chapter 4 and verse 4. It says, and indeed, if our good news has been veiled, this is Saul speaking, and indeed, if our good news has been veiled, covered up, that people can't see any of this, it has been veiled in those who are perishing, in whom the mighty one, well, that's sort of the scripture's way. It's proper to say mighty one, but we wouldn't say mighty one. Most people would say what? God. God. In the English, it has been veiled by those who are perishing, in whom the God of this age. Who's the God of this age? Satan is. I will exalt my throne above the throne of El, and I will be like the Most High God. Did he accomplish that? Here he did. Here he did. And we're now told he is the God of this age, and he has blinded the minds of the unbelieving, so that the enlightening of the good news of the glory of Messiah, who is the likeness of Elohim, does not shine on them. Here's another one. The serpent's foothold here. Luke chapter Luke chapter 4. This is the temptation of Messiah. We'll talk about this more on Wednesday, but the temptation of Messiah. Chapter 4, he brings them and he shows them all the beauty, the cities of the world. I think he's really just showing them Jerusalem and all the magnificence of it. It says, Luke chapter 4, verse 5, and the devil taking him up on a high mountain, showed him all the kings of the world in a moment of time. And the devil said to him, all authority I shall give to you. Wait, who is he offering the authority to? The Son, who is the firstborn, who is a priest, who is going to be tested, and is going to wind up giving his life to save his family. As a priest firstborn should. It goes on, he says, in a moment of time, the devil said to him, all authority I shall give to you, and their glory. Why? For it has been delivered to me. I bought it. I bought it. They're slaves, I'm master. And I can give this to anybody I want. Now don't forget, what was this really all about? Yes, the throne, but it's to sit where? Jerusalem. It's about the sides of the north. He wants Jerusalem. So now he's telling the master, I got all of this, it all belongs to me, and I'm going to give it to anybody I want. This is right out of the AI. You can go on loans to Google AI, just ask them, well, how many wars has there been in history over Jerusalem? More than any other place on the planet. Jerusalem has been the site of over 100 battles and has changed hands more than 40 different times throughout history. It has been conquered and recaptured multiple times. Hold on a second. Who did Yah give Jerusalem to? David, the king. And David's son builds the temple, and he brings the ark back. That city becomes the side of the north, the place of the Most High God, his throne. And yet, what has happened over history? 40 different times throughout history, it has been conquered and recaptured multiple times by various empires and nations, including the Babylonians, the Persians, the Greeks, the Romans, Islam, the Ottoman Turks, the British Empire. Specific events include the capture of the Crusaders during the First Crusade and Saladin's recapture in 1187 and subsequent Ottoman control or Islamic control. Over what? Jerusalem. He showed him all the cities and he said, all of this is mine by default. I bought it. And I will give it to whomever I choose. And what has he done with it? Exactly that. But who did Yah give it to? Israel. Jacob. The children of Ephraim and the children of Judah. That is the place where we go for the Moedim. Here is Matthew chapter 23, verse 37. Messiah comes, and listen to his lament, his crying, his weeping at the end, just before the crucifixion. Now it will make sense. As he stands there looking over the city, he's calling out the city, he's calling out the people of the city, but he's calling out the city because this is an earthly representation of the battle for what's up there. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, killing the prophets and stoning those who were sent to her. So if they're killing the prophets and stoning those who were sent to her, are they obeying Yah or are they obeying the serpent? Pretty obvious. How often I wish to gather your children together the way a hen gathers her chickens under her wings, but you would not. You were not willing. So what's going to happen? See, your house is left to you laid waste. For I say to you, from now on you shall by no means see me. Judah has not seen him as an entire nation understood him from this day till today. Ephraim, on the other hand, our eyes have been opened to him. We say, oh yeah, he's Messiah. He's the Savior. He's the King of Israel. Tell that to Judah, the majority of Judah. They don't want to hear that. It's been closed off to them. Your house is left to you laid waste. I say to you, from now on, you shall by no means see me until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of Yah. And it's when they say that, that is of the utmost importance. All right, number 9 on your notes. So does Messiah click all the buttons? Yes. Yes. He is the firstborn, which makes him ruler, the one given the authority. You know, when we read the story of the golden calf, why is the golden calf such an important story? Well, first of all, because they rebelled right after making the wedding covenant. They rebelled. But it's more than that, because the culture was in that day and way beyond that day, who were the people in each family that was responsible for doing the religious stuff, for giving the offerings? The firstborns. And this is just the culture. So Moses goes up to the mountain. They build a golden calf. They give offerings on this altar. They're doing all sorts of crazy stuff underneath it. Who's doing it? Who are the people most responsible for that sin? The firstborns. They're the ones that do it. That's why when Levi gets up and he's so furious and he goes with the sword and he starts killing them all, that's why Levi gets the job that should have gone to who? The firstborns. It should have gone to all the firstborns of Israel. They should have been the priests for the entire nation. But because of that, it now goes to Levi. That's how important the firstborn is. That's how much Satan is trying to mess with the entire concept. So, is Messiah a firstborn? Here it is, Revelation chapter 3 and verse 14. And to the messenger of the assembly of Laodicea write, this is the Amen, the truthful witness, the trustworthy and true witness, the faithful one. He is the beginning. I put in the PDP there. I'm going to confirm it in a couple other places. He is the first son. He's the beginning of the creation of Elohim. And he says, and he goes on to tell us the letter. Here's Colossians chapter 1 and verse 12. Saul says, giving thanks to the Father who has made us fit to share in the inheritance. Put the PDP there. Share in the inheritance of what? Of the firstborn. The whole Jacob and Esau thing. It's about the inheritance. You either got the inheritance that went from Abraham to Isaac to Jacob. That's the inheritance, the land, all of it. Jacob, who's not the firstborn, gets the inheritance. From who? Esau, who is the firstborn, but sells it to Jacob. Esau's a man of the field. It says Jacob's a man of the tents. It's like over our heads. This is Hebrew speak. A man of the field. Well, Messiah defines that for us. The field is the world. A man of the tents is a person who studied Torah, who listened to Isaac, who listened to Abraham, who studied in the tents. He wanted the job of firstborn. And since the firstborn was unworthy of it, he got it. Only then later on, for the firstborn, remember they're born, Jacob's foot is at his heel. He's talking about at the end times, he's still going to be at his heel. These are two nations, we're told. Two nations fighting in her womb. And the older is going to serve the younger. This is all prophecy. There's only two nations in all of the world. I know there's many different nations, but you are either a sheep or you're a goat. You are either Jacob or you are Esau. Jacob I loved. Come on. He gave up the firstborn status and then wanted it later. He wants the land later. What's going on today in the Middle East? Who was given the land? Judah, Ephraim. Who wants it? Whoever wants it, that is not of Judah, that is not of Ephraim, that is not walking in Messiah, that is not walking in keeping the Torah. Do you know who they are? It doesn't matter whether you can genetically trace your line back to that or not. You're Esau. Because you're saying, no, the land is mine. Well, that's what Esau did. You got all the characteristics of Esau. And the two brothers are at each other. Still today. Still today. Still going on. So he says that we are fit for the inheritance to the set apart ones in the light, who has delivered us from the authority of darkness. That's the purchase. So Satan's a merchant, and he's described as a merchant all over the place. Purchased by Satan and transferred to us in the kingdom or the throne of the Son of his love, Messiah, in whom we have redemption through his blood. So if we have redemption through his blood, he's a priest, and he was willing to lay down his life for his family. That's what a firstborn does. We have redemption through his blood. He was faithful. He gave his life as an offering, as a priest, for the forgiveness of sins, who is the likeness of the invisible Elohim, the mighty one, the firstborn. Here it is again. So he's not just a faithful priest. He's not just one willing to give his life. He's also the firstborn. The firstborn of all creation. Because in him were created all that are in the heavens and that on the earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or rulership or principalities or authorities, all have been created through him and for him, and he is before all, and in him all hold together. And he is the head of the body, the assembly, who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead. So he's not just the firstborn, he's also the firstborn from among the dead, that he might become the one who is first in all. And we are all called to be part of his body. We are either part of the body of Messiah, which is Jacob in Messiah, or we are part of Esau, and our father is Satan. I know that's offensive. It's a binary choice. Everything is. It's this or that. It's sheep or it's goats. That's just the way it is. Firstborns, 1 Corinthians chapter 15, number 10 on your notes. Saul says, for since death is through a man, Adam, resurrection of the dead is also through a man, Messiah. For as all die in Adam, the firstborn, so also shall all be made alive in Messiah, the firstborn. Isaiah chapter 40 and verse 1. So when we read this, so you know, this is part of the whole John the Baptist story. He quotes verse 3, but it's the first verses that go before it that give us context. Isaiah 40 says, comfort, comfort my people. Isaiah is prophesying about a comfort that is coming, a comfort to a particular group of people, that is the house of Israel. He says your Elohim, speak to the heart of Jerusalem and cry out to her that her hard service is completed. The one coming is going to comfort Jerusalem, because the Jerusalem here has been under siege decade after decade, century after century by the rebellion of the people, by the one who's the God of this age, giving its authority to whomever he will. But he's telling them, comfort's coming. It's not going to be like this. The conflict's not settled yet, but the conflict is going to get settled, and my people will have comfort. Jerusalem will have comfort. How? Cry out to her, for her hard service is completed, that her crookedness is pardoned, and that she has received from the hand of Yah double for all her sins. How? A voice of one crying in the wilderness, prepare the way of Yah, make straight in the desert a highway for our Elohim. That's John the Baptist identifying who he is. That thing that says a voice in the desert, that word desert is Aravah in Hebrew. You know what the Aravah is? Where the voice comes from? It comes from the Aravah. The voice that tells the world, this is the way, comes from the Aravah. You know what's in the Aravah? The Qumran community. Smack dab in the middle of the Aravah. And from the Aravah, John the Baptist, from the wilderness, came the straight path. That's the one. He's going to comfort Jerusalem. Hebrews chapter 12. But you have drawn near to Mount Zion and to the city of the living Elohim, to the heavenly Jerusalem, to myriads of messengers, to the entire gathering of the assembly of the firstborn Messiah, having been enrolled in heaven, and to Elohim, the judge of all, and the spirits of righteous men made perfect. So ultimately, even though we're facing this battle here, we being drawn by the one who is the way, ultimately, where will we eventually be restored to? That Jerusalem. Because that conflict will be settled. And so will this one here. This is the shadow. It happens there first, then the shadow. Exodus chapter 4, verse 2. And you shall say to Pharaoh, thus says Yah, Israel, the whole house, is my son. What type of son? Firstborn. The whole house of Israel are firstborns. So I say to you, let my son go and serve me. Jeremiah 31:9. With weeping they shall come, and with prayers I bring them, the great regathering. I shall make them walk by rivers of water in the straight way. He's talking about the Aravah. He's talking about Isaiah 40. In a straight way in which they do not stumble. For I shall be a father to Israel and Ephraim, the fullness of the nations. And if he's a father to Israel and that makes them firstborns, what does it make everybody who's part of Ephraim? Firstborns. Firstborns. Which now means, everybody look at me, look. It now means, because it has been inscribed in law. What does a firstborn do? He's a ruler. He's a priest. He is going to be tested. Will hopefully be found faithful. And if need be, will give his life for his brother. It's inscribed in law. It doesn't change. Here is number 11 on your notes. We are firstborns, kings and rulers. Revelation 3:21, to him who overcomes, I shall give to sit with me on my throne, which has been the whole issue, as I also overcame and sat down with my Father on his throne. How did he overcome? He's the firstborn. He was a priest. He died for his brothers, and he was found faithful during the test. Not my will, yours be done. He was faithful, even to death. So what Father do? Gives him the throne, and now all the inheritance that goes with it. The debt, the argument, the conflict over that throne on that side of the north, the sides of the north there, it's over. It's over. The high priest did his thing. The firstborn son did his thing. That's the reality. What are we? The shadow. And it's taken time for the shadow to be cast down here. But it's coming. The whole story is going to get worked out. To him who overcomes, I shall give to sit with me on my throne, as I also overcame and sat with my Father on his throne. Revelation 26. Blessed and set apart is the one having part in the first resurrection. The second death possesses no authority over these. But those of the first resurrection shall be what? Priests of Elohim and of Messiah, and shall reign as what? Kings, firstborns, with him for 1,000 years here in the shadow. Revelation, Jacob, or book of James, Yaakov. We also are to be tested. And there's a gazillion scriptures you can use for this. I just picked this one, James 1:1 or Yaakov 1:1. He says, I'm a servant of Elohim and of the Master Yeshua Messiah to the 12 tribes who are in dispersion. That's the northern house and the southern house. Greetings, my brothers. Count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the proving, the testing of your faith works endurance. Why would you be tested? Because you're a firstborn. You're going to be tested on every angle, in every way imaginable. In your personal life, in your business life, in your family life, in your financial life, in your marital life, in your physical life, with sickness, with disease, with a neighbor who's a pain in the neck. You're going to be tested. With your kids, you're going to be tested. Everything for the firstborn is a test of faithfulness as to whether we will obey or not. See, the Torah is not just about doing Sabbath. The Torah is not just about keeping the Moedim. That's important. The Torah is about what kind of husband you are, what kind of wife you are, what kind of son you are, what kind of daughter you are, what kind of business owner you are, what kind of friend you are, what kind of neighbor you are, what kind of soldier you are, what kind of employer you are. How do you handle money? How do you handle things when people come at you the wrong way? All of that is Torah. All of it's Torah. And it's a test. Will you obey or not? Because the one you obey, you are his servant. You are his servant. My brothers, count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the proving of your faith works endurance. And ultimately, guys, and I know this is probably not what a lot of people want to hear, because there's two levels to this, right? There's the spiritual level, which I absolutely think is correct and it's right, but there's also a real literal level here. We must be willing to turn over our lives, to give up our life. Think about that for a second. Because our entire culture is about building my life. It's about possession. It's about money. It's about house. It's about family. And it's not that money, house, family, and those things are evil and bad. But if that's what your life is, what does it gain a man to gain the entire world and in the end? So, we can look at a couple of different scriptures. I just pulled out one. Matthew chapter 10, verse 38. And he who does not take up his cross and follow me is not worthy of me. He who has found his life shall lose it. But he that has lost his life for my sake shall find it. Greater love has no man but that he lay down his life. So there's a spiritual part to this, which is absolutely true. Yeah, he needs to be the center of everything we do. It cannot be about just gaining possession. It's not about that. You must have a walk that honors him, that if he requires something of you, you are willing to give it without hesitation. In joy. You know what the problem with Cain and Abel was? The whole Mincha offering that they gave. Mincha offering is an offering that's supposed to be your best, your absolute best to him. Well, Abel gave his best. Cain did not. It was Cain's attitude that was the problem. And the master gives him an opportunity to fix it. But rather than fix it, he's ticked off at God that I got to give my best. And of course, his being ticked off at God has him kill his brother. Over what? An offering? Boy, what a story. Revelation 5:9, and they sang a renewed song saying, you are worthy to take the scroll and to open its seals because you were slain and have redeemed us, Judah and Ephraim, the fullness of the Gentiles. To Elohim by your blood out of every tribe and tongue and people and nation, and have made us kings and priests to our Elohim, and we shall reign upon the earth as firstborns. As firstborns. All of this, guys, and there's so much more, I just don't have time. All of this to let you know that everything that is going on is a last-ditch effort from the conflict that started there, that he's just not giving up down here. And he's fighting tooth and nail. I guess maybe to bring as many of us with him as he can. And so it says, Revelation 12:5, and she, Jerusalem, bore a male child, the firstborn, who was to shepherd all the nations with a rod of iron. And her child was called away to Elohim and to his throne. He overcame. It was always his throne. Now he's passed the test. He's redeemed us. And the great dragon was thrown out, that serpent of old called the devil and Satan, who leads the whole world astray off of a conflict that started there because his heart had pride in it. And he wanted to be like El. He was thrown to the earth and his messengers were thrown out with him. Verse 12, because of this rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. But woe to the earth and sea, because the devil has come down to you having great wrath, because he knows that he has but little time. The conflict that's already been settled there, the shadow is going to be cast here, and this conflict will be settled soon. And we're watching the birth pangs of it right now. Right now. I don't even know what's going on in cities already. I don't know. Could already be started for all we know. And what is it? And I'm not saying that this particular administration is righteous. They're not. They're men like everybody else. But you know what has changed in our culture the last couple of years? We've made at least a couple of steps towards righteousness. We got off the cliff of, we don't know what a man is, we don't know what a woman is. We got off the cliff of, well, your son could be your daughter could be your son. We got off the cliff of, let's give them a surgery and change them and make that health care. We got off the cliff of that. We got off the cliff of making an entire month about something that, I gotta be careful, I'm on YouTube. Gotta be careful. We backed up a little bit. And what has happened to the world, to our nation? Not even making a full run to righteousness, just backing off a little bit. Chaos. We're going crazy. We're going crazy. He knows that his time is short. Here's what's coming, though. Actually, I think here's what's happening. Zechariah 12:22. I'll develop this more in a Bible study later. I just want to give you some perspective. Zechariah is talking about what happens in the end days. Before Messiah comes, he says this, though. See, I am making Jerusalem a cup of reeling, trembling, to all the people around, and also against Judah in its siege against Jerusalem. Who's going to be back in Jerusalem in the end days? Judah. Where's Judah today? In Jerusalem, in Tel Aviv, and in all the different cities in Israel. It's not the way it should be. It's still divided. And that's going to be the problem. And in that day, it shall be that I make Jerusalem a very heavy stone for all the peoples. It is on the tongue of everybody in the United Nations, everybody in the WEF. Every leader there is in the world condemns her to no end. Jerusalem will be a very heavy stone for all peoples. All lifting it will be severely injured. And all the nations of the earth shall be gathered against it. Yep. In that day, I make the leaders of Judah like a fire pot among the trees. That this little teeny weeny little piece of dirt in the Middle East that literally is like this is going up against a country that's literally 10 times its size. Connected to people all around it who are spiritually connected to them. Oh man, that's a fire pot. I know commentators say, well, they're crazy, this is ridiculous, they're going to get destroyed, they're evil. There's a bigger story being worked out here that the talking heads on CNN do not know. They do not understand. In that day, I shall make the leaders of Judah like a fire pot among the trees, and like a torch of fire in the sheaves. And they shall consume all the peoples around. 1948, 1967, 1972. What happened? What has been going on with Judah for the last 70 years? Excuse me. They've been kicking butt and taking names. I'm sorry, but that's what's been going on. And against all odds, they're still there. I'm not saying they're perfect. I'm not saying they're even serving Yah properly. I'm not. I'm just telling you, that's what he says here. This is what's going to happen, and it's happening. And they shall consume all the peoples around on the right and on the left, and Jerusalem shall dwell again in her own place in Jerusalem. But, Zechariah 14 says, see, the day shall come from Yah, and your spoil shall be divided in your midst. I shall gather all the nations to battle against Jerusalem, and the city shall be taken. It's going to be divided. They're going to make East Jerusalem the capital of the Palestinians. Wait, what's the battle over? Jerusalem. What did the serpent want? To sit on the high place, on the sides of the north. Get my Moedim and let me be called El. And he got it through chicanery. Messiah bought it back with blood. And he's going to take ownership. And I think that's already starting. But the nations are going to want to divide it and give a state. I think that starts everything. And the city shall be taken, the houses plundered, and the women ravished. Bad things are coming. Half of the city shall go into exile. A group of people will be born. Believers of Judah in Mashiach will go out into exile, into the area of Jordan, be protected by the country of Jordan. And Judah will be born. And in the midst of all the horror they're going through, you know what they're going to say? Blessed is he. Now that we know who he is, who comes in the name of Yah. And while Jerusalem and Israel are suffering all of this, what's going on in the rest of the world? Yah will judge Babylon. And he's telling his people in Babylon, at the same time that's going on to his people in Babylon, come out of her. Come out of her. Don't listen. She's become a haunt for every evil bird, every demon, everything that, just watch what's going to happen all day today. Tell me that's not true. That's what the Western world has become. Esau. We become Esau, Babylon. And Yah shall go forth, and he shall fight against those nations. OMG. That's not good. This is not good for the nations. That's why Saul says, and for those who are alive and remain, for those who survive, and they see the coming, they shall be changed in the twinkling of an eye. It is that day, his feet, the one who they called on, shall stand upon the Mount of Olives, which faces Jerusalem on the east. And the Mount of Olives shall be split in two from east to west, a very great valley. And half of the mountain shall move toward the north, and half of it toward the south. If you're sitting in the city, if you're on the Mount of Olives, because he's already judged, he's already done Babylon. That's why when he sees him and he's got blood all over his vesture. He already dealt with Babylon. He already dealt with NATO. He already dealt with Europe. He already dealt with America. Now he's coming from Basra, the area that was the capital of Esau, which is now the nations. He's going to the Mount of Olives, and his vesture is dripping with blood from pressing the winepress of the wrath of Almighty God. Because the conflict that was started there is going to be resolved here too. It's coming. We can't stop it because he tells us the ending from the beginning. And the Mount of Olives shall be split in two. Ezekiel 37, last verse for today. And I shall make Judah and Ephraim, I shall make them one nation in the land, on the mountains of Israel. And one king, Messiah, shall be king over them all. And let them no longer be two nations, a nation with the fulfillment of the fullness of the Gentiles and Judah. Let them no longer be two nations, and let them no longer be divided into two kingdoms. Verse 27, and my dwelling place shall be over them, and I shall be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. And the nation shall know that I, Yah, am setting Israel, the whole house, apart. When my set apart place, my throne, is in their midst forever. He's already established the throne there. Now it's got to happen here. That is Yah's word for you for this morning. I know it's a lot of information, and I tried to cut it down. Trust me, I tried to cut it down. There's so much more to say. So, what's going on all around us? The battle for Jerusalem. And it happens in many, many different ways, in many, many different lands, but it's the same conflict. All of it's the same conflict, because the enemy knows his time is short. How short? I don't know. We'll see. Is what's going on right now the beginning of the first Gog-Magog war? I don't know. We'll see. Are there people who have been let in over the last 4 years from that country looking to do evil here? I don't know. We'll see. All of this, however, it's about Jerusalem. It's about the conflict. And it's going to get settled. Yah, we love you. We thank you for your word, for this magnificent story. We ask and we pray that you would give us a desire to understand it. Father, to go past just a 2-minute short online, but to take time to understand what this story is about and to know that we are living it today. We pray, Yah, that you would open up the eyes of Judah and open up the eyes of your people, Ephraim, scattered amongst the Gentiles. Open our eyes, help us to see, to understand, to be drawn back to you. And Yah, whatever comes, be it that we give up our life in the things that we own and possess, or if on that day, at that moment, those things are required of us. Help us to be faithful firstborn sons, faithful priests, faithful kings. In the name and in the same way that our King and Messiah was to us. In his marvelous name, we say amen. Amen. Well, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. I am hungry. I am sure that you guys are too. Please download the notes so you guys get all the information there. You can see the different order of things. This is inscribed in the law. Guys, have an awesome rest of the day out there. Enjoy your Shabbat. Everybody say with me, Shabbat. Peace, everybody.